Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 102 of the Simply Football Podcast. I am your co host, Peter, joined by my co host, Patrick,
Hello.
and Zach.
Thanks for having me on again. Glad to be back.
Oh, no problem. So, we have a lot to talk to in this first, what to talk about in this first episode of the new season. We're going to start with the really interesting topic, just the whole summer of news, rumors, all that, like the Portuguese usually like. Patrick, you're sporting. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, and there's always gonna be like that. Obviously, with the situation with who's staying, who's going, and what the new ideas are for the club now that Jesus is gone and Bruno Carvalho's gone. Yeah, it was always going to be turbulent, busy, and it's essentially what Sporting's had. Really, it's not the most ideal of preparations, but we're braving through it. And we've had some interesting results in pre-season, some good ones like the one against Nice and the performance against Marseille last was it Sunday or Saturday? I can't even remember. But yeah, that was
Saturday, I think.
yeah, that was quite pleasing to see. But there's obviously been other um, moments, like I think for moments of the game where we played that Swiss team, which we won quite comfortably. I thought we weren't nowhere near as good enough as we should have been, and obviously there's a few poor results in there, like the one where we played Mafra and lost 2-1. Obviously that was behind closed doors, so who knows how the flow of that game went, but obviously it's never nice to lose to a team like that. So no, it's been a bit of a mixed bag, and but generally there is something that's quite refreshing about obviously having a new manager, and when you grow like, a little bit fed up of the system that Jesus had implemented. Especially in those games when Sporting are losing, and you sort of think, right, what can we do to change this? And Jesus been stubborn or quite committed to what he believes, and that never really changes it. It's quite refreshing to then come into something a lot different with Posada, and what I think Posada will try to install in Sporting's way of playing is a 4-3-3 style, perhaps 4-2-3-1, which is different, and I've quite liked facets of it so far. So it's not all doom and gloom, I think, and I am a little bit more intrigued than I was prior to pre-season about what Posada can do with this squad. I'm still obviously not sold on him as a manager. I think he was great back in 2005, but football's obviously very different now, and things change. I'm not sure whether he's adapted quite as well, and I'm not sure he's quite strong enough to control what's going on behind the scenes, because there's so much going on behind the scenes. It's very difficult sometimes for the players to truly be focused. So there's lots of question marks still, but there's a few positives to get behind, and I still think Sporting have an interesting team, and it's with that optimism that I, as a fan, look onwards and look forward to the season.
All right, but having one more game to play right now, if you just had to, obviously before the preseason started, everybody said, okay, Sporting has no shot at the title. But virtually everybody said that. Do you think though, with the preseason that you saw, that they at least can come close to it, or do you think that this year would be, really, luck by their part and like have to be extremely efficient? While Benfica and Porto have to slip up for them to be champions. Like right now, what are you thinking?
Um, you know, there's no doubt in that Porto and Benfica come into this season as favourites between themselves to fight for the title, and I think Sporting, although they do have a good squad and certainly good enough to be at the very least third, which might not happen because Braga have a very good team as well, and are more, I think, cohesive than what Sporting are at this stage. We never know. Like coming into a season, there might be surprises, and obviously the season is long. So, looking on the challenge right now, there's plenty of space for Sporting to grow into the season and try to do something. Whether it be with Pozade or whoever follows him after the elections, perhaps someone will. But yeah, to me it's clear that Benfica and Porto are top two in this race, and we'll be left counting on a surprise if Sporting are to do anything. I think Sporting, if we're just looking plainly at the squads, I think Benfica are perhaps a little bit stronger, and they have the added responsibility to bounce back from finishing second last season, and Porto are still strong. They've obviously lost a few players here and there, but they've added others. But it's all about the unit with them, and I believe that will still be present. Sporting is very different. A lot has been shaken up, and when you lose William, when you lose Patricio, when you lose Gelson, three Portuguese internationals. So that's gonna hit heavy on the squad. So there's no doubting that Sporting, of the three, is a team that's got considerably weaker. So it'll be a massive challenge for Sporting to do it. But you never know. Football's full of surprises, and that's what you got to hang on to at the moment.
You brought up, an interesting point, something that I just, let's get right into it, I guess. With you guys losing William and, mostly William in that midfield, and given what Geraldo did last year for Setúbal, a lot of Sporting fans, if not all of them, pegged them to at least be, consistently playing in the first team. He gets loaned out to a German team, to Eintracht Frankfurt, where if he has success, you'll probably never see him again. What are your thoughts on letting him go?
Well, it's been, in my opinion, it's been one of the saddest moments of the transfer window to obviously see a player like that go. I wouldn't go as far as saying, this kid he's top. He's got to be in the starting 11. To me, obviously he's got a lot of potential, but with that comes, you need to come and prove yourself, and that's essentially what we would have asked for. I certainly think he has space in the squad, be it as cover for Bruno Fernandes or someone to fill in the Bruno Fernandes role higher up the pitch for when Bruno Fernandes is needed deeper. He would have been super useful for Sporting this season. So it's obviously disappointing to see him go out on loan, but from a player's perspective, I think it's a very good move for him going to Frankfurt, which is an interesting side. Obviously, we know the Bundesliga is a very good league as well, so it's good. It's a good bit of exposure for him. But yeah, obviously, with the situation that Sporting have, you don't want to lose more like potential in that way. We sort of need all our best players to hang on to the boat, so to speak. So to see him loaned out, and there might be a few others like Paulinho and all that who obviously aren't as good, but might be able to lend a hand in one way or another. To see them go out on loan to interesting clubs as well, as you say, like we talk about Paulinho going to Lille. If he impresses there, then obviously Sporting could get money from that after that. But it's nice to see these players like represent your club as well. So we lose that element, and it's also not the greatest. I know Sporting, the academy is there's a lot of effort behind the academy and bringing players through. It's not really the best advert when you look at players like Paulinho and Geraldo, and even others like Domingos Duarte and onwards. It's not the best reflection on the project that Sporting's always tried to convey. So from that perspective, primarily, it's quite disappointing. Yeah.
All right. So I'm not sure if you want to rather tackle the squad as it is right now, or do you want to maybe go over who left and who came in for Sporting? Because there's so much to talk about. So
yeah, I mean, we can go by positions. I mean, obviously we lose Patricio, who in my opinion is one of the top goalkeepers in the world. Not to say he's world class, but it's like when we're looking at the top 20s, top 30s, I think he's in there. So it's going to be a bit of a loss to lose him, especially in the circumstances that he's gone. It's quite sour. But I like Viviano. I think Viviano could be quite interesting for the Portuguese league. And then beyond him, we've got Salah and the young kid Maximian, which I think we're quite stable there. We're quite stable along the back as well. We spoke about off air about Maicon coming in. I don't really see space for him personally. When you got Matteo, you got Pinto, you got Marcelo, Coates hopefully will stay. That's a strong combination of centre backs right there, and the right backs we're quite cool there as well with Gaspar and Ristovski. Left back as well, I think we need some work. We obviously loaned out Jonathan Silva, who, in my opinion, he's quite an erratic player, and I'm just not sure. I'm just not convinced it will work for him at Sporting, with the displays behind him and all that. And I don't think Jefferson is that bit more reassuring as well. He had a good season at Braga, but there's elements to his game which I'm not fully convinced by. Lamori is an interesting player for me. I certainly would include him in my plans if I was Peseiro. And the other thing that I would do, I think we spoke about this on past pod. I would actually convert Acuna full time to left back. I think that would be the easiest way to sort out that problem that we have, and then just go with a back line of perhaps Ristovski or Gaspar. We don't know yet who's best out of those two. Acuna on the other side, and then obviously Coates and Matteo. I think that would be Sporting's safest bet, working from the back. In the middle, we obviously had Bataglia come back. Pin Vendor will play a bigger role this year, and Misic as well, because I think Misic I reckon he could be quite useful in the middle of the park. But I do think Sporting lack a natural defensive midfielder, perhaps someone who can play the ball as well. But Badeli would have been nice, which we were linked to. But obviously, it looks like he's off to Lazio. I think he would have been a nice bridge between the defence and midfield that we'll need now that William's gone. I think a lot of responsibility will be placed on guys like Mathieu and Coates to build from the back. We had a bit of that with Mathieu against Marseille, and the dots just weren't connecting. So to me that's a worry, that we can't quite build from the back and into midfield and progress our football there. To me, I think that's the biggest worry. That's the biggest gap, is finding that deep playmaker, that defensive midfielder who can, as you say, connect the dots. Looking forwards, I think Sporting are all right. I think the only thing that's missing is perhaps a more agile striker, someone in the mould of like a Vieta or something that Sporting have been linked to. Lucas Perez would be a nice addition, in my opinion. Someone that could potentially work with Dost or try to lead the line himself in the Portuguese league. But other than that, I think Sporting could risk it and go with the likes of Matheus Pereira, Rafinha, Nani, perhaps give a bit more time to Jovan Cabral or Elvis Balde. Who knows what will happen with Rafael Leão if he's all right and in the right frame of mind. He could certainly add something to this team. And obviously you've got guys like Freddie Montero as well, who in my opinion is quite a useful player to have. So I think we're looking all right, but obviously not as good as Benfica or Porto. But I think we could surprise some people.
I didn't want to interrupt you there. But there's just like a couple of things that I, wanted to touch upon. So Acuna wasn't playing any of the games as a left back because I thought that would have been the natural thing to do. So
No,
I
I
didn't
mean,
question it.
I think Acuna only came in because obviously because of the World Cup. I think he only came in, played his first official game against Marseille, and interestingly, Pozzolo slotted him in at centre mid, and he was quite good.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so he came straight in at centre mid, but I don't know whether that was just Pozzolo saying, "Look, mate, we just brought on Lamorda and whatnot. The left side's been renewed, just go into centre midfield and do whatever." And obviously, Cunha has a good engine on him, so he can get up and down the field for a little bit and just test his capabilities. But I actually thought he looked quite neat. But I don't know whether there's method behind that little switch up or it's just Pozzolo saying, "Yeah, do whatever."
I don't know. It's kind of interesting because it would bring me to my second point. As I was saying, I was very critical of Pizzi because I felt like he was an attacking midfielder, and attacking midfielders are actually supposed to push the ball forward and carry the ball, more than 5 yards before passing it to the side. When you were talking about you having someone to link the midfield, with the defense and the attack, he just came to my mind because I was thinking that you guys would need somebody that would play that position. So I was thinking now that I see Acuna there. I'm not sure if he has the ability to play there, but that would be interesting because I was thinking that you guys definitely need to add somebody to there. I don't think Bataglia can be that guy. I think
No.
Bruno Fernandes can be that guy, but you need him way further up the pitch
Yeah.
than that. So that's definitely going to be an interesting decision and probably the one of the hardest ones.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the logical thing would be to um, try and mold Vendel into picking up those tendencies to show for the ball and carry it in the way that he can because Vendel's he's a good technical player and he should if he's worth his salt certainly be looking to do that kind of stuff from midfield. So if you can channel that sort of game into Vendel's arsenal and couple him along someone like Battaglia, who's obviously going to destroy things in the middle of the park. I know Battaglia is naturally box to box, but he can do a job at defensive midfield as we saw towards the end of last season, and then that frees up Bruno Fernandes to get to play a lot closer to the final third. But even then, I mean, you could always just play a 4-3-3 in my opinion, and see what Bruno Fernandes can do a lot deeper, and then add greater responsibility to your wingers, who we've got some flamboyant wingers in there like Nani and Rafinha, Matheus Pereira. All of these guys can play ball
So
quite well.
you're counting on Nani as a winger.
No, I just mean, yeah, Nani can also he's played left wing and just behind the striker so far for Sporting. I'm not sure what we're going to get with Nani, to be honest, but like in terms of his output, but I certainly think these are players that can share the burden a bit, so it's not everything's not piled onto Bruno Fernandes in terms of creativity in the final third. I think a lot of that was on him and Gelson last season. I think we lacked a bit of variety, another person with more ideas. So on that note, I think he'll be quite positive.
So I'm going to give you a few options for the midfield, and you tell me right now, at the moment which one you prefer having. So Misic, Vandal, and Bruno Fernandes. Bataglia, Vandal, Bruno Fernandes. Bataglia, Bruno Fernandes, Nani.
In my opinion, I'd go with the second one, Battaglia, Vendel, and Bruno Fernandes. But ideally, I'd be in the market looking for, someone with similar characteristics to what we were trying to do with Milan Badeli. I'm not sure if Ekdal from Hamburg is that type of player. I haven't seen enough of him. But to me, that's the weak link. That deep line playmaker and a second striker, or a mobile striker. Those are the two areas that Sporting need to focus on in the market so far.
All right, so steering the conversation a little bit over to Zach. So we've been talking about Sporting and their squad. Zach, what do you think right now? Looking at their team, where do you see them finishing? If he unmutes his mic. Okay. Zach? If it doesn't say anything, I'll have to ask you something else.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. We should do that. Let me just thank you for a second. So you guys, why did you say that you were like thanking when you said the right backs? You said they're not sure if it's going to be Ristovski or Bruno Gaspar. I thought Bruno Gaspar would have been, ahead of that.
Everything.
There you are. Hi, Zach.
Hey.
All right, so I'll ask Zach the question first, and then I'll ask you what I was saying. Okay, Patty?
Yeah, sure.
All right, Zach. So, like I said, we were talking about Sporting, their team and everything. Where do you see them finishing, right now, if you had to predict, given the squad that they have and who they're going up against? So what place do you think they'll finish?
Predict where they would finish. I'd probably
Is he lagging massively for you too, Patrick, or is it just me?
Yeah, I thought it was just me.
Yeah, he's like you're lagging a lot, Zach. You might have to rejoin the call or something because he was really laggy. We couldn't get anything from what you were saying. Okay, well, moving on, Patrick. To what I was telling you. Bruno Gaspar, you're talking about Bruno Gaspar and Ristovski, how you're not sure who's going to take the spot. I thought Bruno Gaspar would have been, ahead in that race. What's keeping Ristovski in there? Is it the fact that he's been there for a whole season, so he has that going for him?
Yeah, we me as a fan and certainly other people, we know what to expect from Ristovski, and I thought every time he came into the team, whenever Piccini was out or whatever, I thought he did quite well, and he's that sort of player that the fans really get behind because he's super energetic and he's just got good qualities for a fullback. Defensively, obviously, he's not as strong, I think, as he is going forwards, or more so because he's so energetic. It suits him well to bomb up and down that flank, and you think, yeah, we've got a real player here. But we'll see what we get with Gaspar when he comes into the team. He's still got a lot to prove. He obviously had a difficult season with Fiorentina, and so to come to Sporting now, we'll have to see how he picks himself up. That's why, to me personally, I'm undecided. I thought when Gaspar was at Guimarães, it was very good. So if we get that Gaspar, then yeah, it will be very tight. But I'm a fan of both players, so that's why I say we're quite good there. And actually, I thought it was when we brought Gaspar in, I thought this is a very good opportunity to sell Piccini. Obviously, we sold Piccini for I think it was 8. I think it's 8 million that could rise to 10. Which obviously isn't good enough for the season that he just had. I thought Sporting could have sold him for a bit more, given the season that. Not to say that Pacini's brilliant or anything, but given the season that he's had at Sporting, I think Sporting could have definitely stretched the price tag a little bit more. So I was a bit disappointed with that, but certainly behind Pacini, what's left, Gaspar and Rostovsky, I think those are two solid right backs for Sporting to take onwards.
Well, let's put it this way. You might have lost financially, like you're saying, not stretching the price tag, but I think you win football-wise because I think both of them are better than Piccini. So
depends.
That's my take. I I always prefer Ristovsky from what I've watched.
Yep.
So
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can hear me now?
Yeah, we can still hear you.
All right, great.
All right, good. So yeah, and all right. So I'm gonna try and ask you this a third time, Zach.
Yeah.
Given everything that happened in Sporting's current squad right now, and who they're going up against in Benfica and Porto, where right now, after basically all their preseason being played, where do you see them finishing right now? Like, what type of season do you think they'll have?
It's kind of hard to come back from a kind of a scandal like that and, challenge for the title. So, I mean, right now I think Sporting aren't going to be challenging Porto or Benfica for the title. I mean, their squad isn't as good as it was last season.
We're losing him again. All right, we can't hear anything, Zach. You're just cut off again. Oh lordy lord. Okay, right. So let's do that. So we lost him again, but can you pick up on what he was saying? Patrick, about the fact that they were, that there's one thing that he said though that I find kind of debatable in saying that Sporting don't have as good of a squad that they had last year. They really lose out on a goalkeeper. Yeah, I mean that's a big loss. William, yeah, and Gelson, but really those are players that you would expect to leave either way, right?
Yeah, I mean they would, but at the same time, if under under normal circumstances, you probably sell Patricio for I'd say about 20 million. Gelson probably gets you about 35, and William probably gets you about 25. So not only do you sell William for more, but you also get fees for Patricio and Gelson, and then a fraction of that, because obviously Sporting, they need to make their own bank and sort out financial holes that every Portuguese club has, unfortunately. But then a fraction of that can go towards, signing ready-made replacements or different kind of potential, which certainly would have made Sporting a lot stronger in this situation. As I say, like if we're looking at the replacements, I think Viviano's been a neat acquisition from Sporting. He's nowhere near as good as Patricio, but he's a decent goalkeeper, and I think for the Portuguese league, he's quite stable. But then you don't have no one to replace William as of yet, and it will definitely be difficult to find someone who's as sparky on the flanks as Gelson. Mateus Pereira is a very good player, but I think when you compare him they're different kinds of players, obviously, different types of wingers. I think Mateus Pereira is someone who's geared to being a lot more flashy and creative, whereas Gelson is creative, but at the same time quite industrious and tactically aware. So you lose certain facets to Gelson's game, which I think every team accepts, and there's no coincidence other than obviously the fact that Mendes is involved in the negotiations and it is quite close to Atletico Madrid. But beyond that, I think Gelson is a player who Simeone might well like quite a lot. And he does, as we know, Simeone doesn't fall in love with every kind of winger that appears at Atletico Madrid. I mean, when you look at the likes of Gaetan and Carrasco, which are two very good players, they never really settled in to the Atletico model. So we'll see how Gelson does. I think he'll do quite well there. But yeah, definitely with Gelson gone and William gone, I think those are two big holes. But I still think it's a good squad. I definitely wouldn't rule it out. It is inferior, in my opinion, in parts to Porto and Benfica, but not by much. And on any given season, a team like this can put together a very good campaign and go for the title. That might still happen, but there's no hiding the fact that at least psychologically, Sporting start a few steps behind compared to Benfica and Porto, with all the drama that's gone. And I think that's what Zach was alluding to. When you have that kind of cloud over you, and then to follow it up, the preparation, in my opinion, hasn't been as routine as you'd expect. It's been very turbulent with cancellations and drama off the field with who's going to be president and whatnot, and what does the future hold for some of these players. When you mix all that together, it's not ideal. It's not the ideal way to tackle a season, and obviously that's, to me, what puts Sporting geared towards a third place rather than second or first. And I think if you were to go around as a general consensus, if you were to say, for example, to a Sporting fan, "Oh, you're going to finish third," they'd probably say, yeah, I can see that. Whereas on another season, they'll be like, "Nah, come on, mate, we're winning it this year or whatever." I think this year we're a lot more accepting to the situation, and I just think it's the natural thing to think at the moment that Sporting will be not to finish third, but they'll be. That's the fight that they've got on their hands. With Braga obviously coming in behind, and Guimarães looking a lot stronger than they were last season too.
All right. So just to finish off on Sporting and move on, because we've been talking Sporting mainly. What I was saying is that yeah, it's inferior, but for the Champions League and the Europa League, I think in the Portuguese league, you're not going to tell a huge difference. At least I don't think, with the current squad that you guys have. And the biggest key this year for Sporting is consistency. That's what it's going to be. If you guys, because I definitely think this team, or at least this squad, could be decent enough to string a couple of, good results. But they need to, string a lot of them to be able to fight for the title.
Yeah, but, I mean, that's the thing, to win the title, and I think we're beginning to have this conversation a lot more over the past few seasons, is that you need to make so few mistakes. And like every game that you come into and you drop points, that could be the point that decides, that decides whether you win or lose the title. Because at the top, Porto, Benfica, Sporting, they're becoming more and more dominant, and they're churning out more and more results, and that's the sort of resilience that makes a difference. I don't think for as good as Sporting squad is, those moments where you're drawing 1-1 away to Tondela, for example, and Tondela have been parked behind their 18-yard box for the last 60 minutes or whatever. There's 5 minutes left on the clock. Those moments where you need to be so cool and fresh in the head, that like when your team's not cohesive and when your team's not really up to scratch, I think those are the moments that could be quite telling for Sporting come the end of the season. Even if they have like a very good like really good moment, which they certainly can do with the squad that they have. I think teams like Benfica and Porto, and even Sporting last season, and those sorts of sides are far better equipped to handle those challenges than Sporting find themselves right now.
Mm-hmm. All right. So with that said, let's move on to Benfica then, and then we'll give out a quick run over to Porto because honestly, I couldn't bother watch the preseason games, and well, it's preseason, right? So it is what it is. But anyway, let's get over to Benfica. I just want to quickly cover over the preseason games, much like you did. First game, Benfica played na Predac. They're a mid-table Serbian side. They won comfortably 3-0. Not much to see in that game. And I'll get over one thought that I have when I'm done with everything, because I think there's something interesting to all of this. But Benfica tied Setúbal 1-1. It was nice to see Ferreira score in that game. We beat Svida, tied Dortmund, tied Juventus, and we're playing Lyon tomorrow. I think the biggest thing with Benfica this preseason, first the 4-4-2 and the 4-3-3. The 4-4-2 seems to be a lot more quick. The players seem to, or at least the way that system is being built right now, is to be a lot more fast-paced and creating way more opportunities. We saw that every time if he played on a 4-4-2, they were more aggressive and they were moving the ball faster. But there was one thing that in both systems was noticeable. And last year, Benfica had a lot of trouble playing from the back. I don't know if you noticed that all too much, Patrick, but, teams, whenever they pressured Benfica, they did a high pressure. We booted the ball forward a lot. In all of these preseason games, we were pressured, and we were pressured, by very good players, especially, on Dortmund's side. And they played from the back every single time. Whether, we could have made mistakes, yeah, but it was on preseason. You have to make these types of mistakes. I think they were creating mechanics from how to get out of pressure without putting the ball forward. And it was really interesting to see, Jetson and Pizzi, Feza, and whoever was the center back on that side, really close to each other, trying to make quick 1-2s to get the ball, out of danger without putting it forward. So I think this team is definitely a lot more relaxed, and they seem to be just more mature. And I think that was noticeable. And I see some Benfica fans, being mad at the preseason games. I genuinely thought it was a good preseason, not only just because of the results. Obviously, going 2-0 down against Dortmund in a game where we didn't deserve to be 2-0 down, but we were, and we tied 2-2. That was really good. And a game against Juventus where we were clearly dominant in the first half, and the second half it was all Juventus, and we still managed to nick a very great, an amazing goal by Grimaldo, and then only to concede also another screamer. It shows that this team is handling the pressure and the situations differently than last year. Yeah, it's preseason, but there's a lot of good things to take from here. And the biggest criticism that I see is that Benfica isn't creating a lot of opportunities. No, they're not. But then again, we're not playing at a faster pace where you need to get a goal right away to set, the game like you want it to. We're not playing. The results in these games don't matter. So obviously the team isn't going to play the same way that they would play a game, like they're going to play against Fenerbahce or whoever else. So I think with the faster pace of the game, the opportunities will come. And I think that this team is way more suited for the title this year than last year. And, and I wouldn't be surprised if we end up winning it, really, because I feel like, at least football wise, we've been playing well. And if you, in this is preseason, if you tack on whatever they'll learn between each other, with all the new signings and just the faster pace of regular season football, then I feel like we can go a long way.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think Benfica, in my opinion, are looking a lot stronger in parts, and obviously some of the arrivals cover a few gaps. You've been unlucky to be without. Is it Ebuehi? He's picked up that injury.
Ebway, something like that. I still don't know. He did have a lot of minutes. I think it's Ebway, but it is in the Portuguese way, so maybe,
Yeah, so and Benfica are in the market for a right back again with that injury. Are you not? Is that the position he's been playing for Benfica?
Yeah, right back.
Yeah,
he came in for Almeida
because he plays on the left for Nigeria. But yeah, I think if Benfica can cover those gaps in the squad, then yeah, they're certainly looking a lot stronger. I think for me the interesting thing is to see how this Benfica team react. And from obviously pre-season, Benfica have had excellent seasons off the back of worse ones. So, if you compare some of the pre-seasons and some of the tours that Benfica have had, and even when they've come up against stronger teams in the past, like Arsenal or whatever, things have gotten quite ugly. From that perspective, you play two very good sides in Dortmund and Juve, and things from the scores perspective were quite well. And if you can see the ideas coming off on the pitch, that's the most important thing really in the pre-season game. And obviously, as you say, once you get into competitive football, you are expecting the team like Benfica to really come into their stride a lot more, as they have done in the past where they haven't been as impressive. So yeah, when the Fenerbahces and the Sportings roll around, I think we will be seeing a Benfica that is more and more refined. I expect them to be more and more refined anyway, as those competitive games start rolling through next month. We're last month of July now, yeah. So next month,
tomorrow.
yeah. Soon in a few hours for us.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, to me, the interesting thing is how you guys react mentally from the fact that Porto obviously took your title after so many successive seasons, and obviously Rui Vitória will be feeling it. I think he will be feeling the pressure a little bit. But he's coped with pressure quite well over the years. So it's interesting to see how it all unfolds. That's my take on Benfica.
Mm-hmm. All right. I just want to quickly cover, what I think needs to be added after I just say about the departures and the arrivals. So just notable departures, we had João Carvalho go to Nottingham Forest for 15 million euros. I'm definitely not fussed. I think it was one of the guys on the youth ranks where you could see that there was quality, but he had time. He had minutes to play. He was just never able to, to show in the A squad what he did for the B team. So him leaving for that large of a transfer fee, I really don't see a problem in it. I wouldn't have minded if he would have stayed for another year, but we have other guys that can play his position, and I think they can do it better. Just looking at João Felix, real quick, I think he's a much better player than João Carvalho, so I think we should be good there. Cristante is one that we obviously blew that one, but who was going to say that he was going to have a great year at Atalanta, or was it Atalanta, or I think that he was on loan. That's kind of, and then we sold him off to I don't know, Roma.
Yeah, he's at Roma now.
Yeah, so nobody would have predicted him to have that great of a season at Atalanta to a point where he would go to Roma. So it sucks that we only got 5 million for it, but at least we got more than what we invested in him. And last but not least, Raul Jimenez was obviously a big name, but with who we brought on, and the fact that we can get, I think it's 40 million in total if they do pay the the buyout clause, I'm definitely up for that. You want to say anything here, Patrick, or about departures?
No, obviously. Well, I know we'll touch upon the under 29 soon, but the big news there is obviously we got Jean-Philippe is making headlines there as well. So it'll be interesting to see if at any stage Rui Vitória is interested in incorporating him into the squad. With João Felix, who you've already mentioned, who's also another very talented player from the youth team. So those are two additions that perhaps we could see, and Jedson Fernandes as well coming into the team. I don't know what you think the prospects are on that.
Yeah, I'll get there. So just on the arrivals real quick, we have Castillo join us. He's definitely the Mitroglou type player that we needed last year. I think he's going to fare fairly well in our league. Whether he gets a lot of goals or not, I'm not sure if that's going to be really defining on him. I think he's going to be definitely more of a player, that he's going to hold up the ball and he's going to create space for Jonas too. I'm not too bothered. I think he'll do well no matter how many goals he bags. Obviously, the more the merrier. But Conti was a very good signing, and dare I say, I think he might be better than Ruben Dias.
Yeah, Conti's one that was obviously linked with Sporting in Jesus' time. So I don't know if he was already on Benfica's radar and Jesus pitched the name and brought it over to our dossier. But he can play defensive midfielder as well, can't he? So versatile player there. And that's through Conti is where I say Benfica are a lot stronger now because I think Jardel needed that sort of support, a player that can also come in and cover for him. And Ruben Dias will certainly should thrive from his presence because it makes things more competitive at the back. With essentially you've got three defenders who could be starting, and then Luizão will feature whenever he's called upon. So it's good for everyone involved, I think. In that sense, in Benfica, I think defensively, the back line was Benfica's biggest weakness last season. So I think he fixed half the problem there with a guy like Conti who has the space to improve, and
even Lemma, bringing on Lemma too. He hasn't played as much, but you could definitely see that he's a solid backup. And with Jardel, getting older, Lemma could definitely end up taking that role of more of a leader. I think this team did really well with the center backs that they picked.
I mean, Lemma was, from what I've heard, he's been on Benfica's radar for quite some time. So he must have been, desired quite heavily for him to eventually make the move from Belgrano. But obviously, a lot of people have twisted their nose at him in the short space of time that he's been given. A lot of people saying he's quite slow and whatnot, which I don't think will be too much of a problem. I haven't seen him play personally, but in the Portuguese league, I think sometimes you can certainly get away with a slower centre back and someone who can be a little bit more physical over. The general athleticism that you'll get from Ruben Dias. So, we'll see. And sometimes players take a little bit more time to settle in than others as well. So, time will tell. I think a lot of the times as well, Portuguese clubs, as we've seen with Porto, you'll bring in a player and it's very easy to just say, yeah, we've signed him. Oh, actually, he's not very good. Let's bin him off. I think Portuguese players, Portuguese teams, they recycle these players far too easily. So Lemma has to be warned about that, but we'll see what he does. I think he'll definitely be part of the squad, and he should realistically, when the time comes, get his chance to impress. We'll see if he's any good.
We also signed or re-signed Alpha Semedo. Honestly, a par with Jetson, which I'll get to, been the most impressive uh, player because I wasn't expecting him to be as good as he was. The fact that first of all, he's been able to steal the ball quite easily, and then he's able to transport it, bring it forward. He just seems to energize the team. So that's definitely something that it kind of gives a spark in that midfield, which is interesting because he comes in as a CDM, but he's able to affect everybody around him, which it's really good. It's important because it's something we liked last year.
Yeah, and especially like when you talk about Faisal, who's obviously a pivotal player for Benfica, and there have been times when Faisal has not been there, and I think you felt his absence quite a bit. Samaris doesn't quite cover the needs as well as a club like Benfica would like. So when you got a player like Faisal who's quite injury prone, it's nice to have. Nice to have a player like that, like Samid, who can introduce a bit of energy and steely, a bit of steeliness in the middle of the park as well. It's obviously a bit. People talk about it. That's a bit of a funny move, obviously, because he was at Benfica just 1 or 2 seasons ago, and you've gone back to pick him up and all that. But he's there now. He's back. And yeah, he's another player that we'll see. And Jetson's a player I like quite a bit as well from the youth team. Interesting addition. As a pure football fan, I'd like to see him take the steps into the first team and see what he can do as well from as a squad player.
When the names of the players is surfaced of the guys from the B team that would make the jump. A lot of the attention was on João Felix. I'm not going to say that I was the only one because I wasn't, but I was really happy that Jetson got the call, and I think he grabbed the spot. I mean, unless that Gabriel guys comes to Benfica, which I'm not even sure why. I don't know enough about him or anything about him for Benfica to pay almost 10 million for him, or maybe even more. When Jetson, honestly, he's been amazing, and there's a reason why he's played maybe over 70 minutes every game. I think he basically played, if not, in every game, at least 70, 80 minutes. There's a reason for that. And I don't think that it's just because of him having to play with these guys and get the chemistry. I think it's because Vitória is definitely preparing him for a bigger role this year because he's just been great. And the fact that he's fast and he's able to bring the ball forward also helps PZ be that deep playing midfielder that he prefers to be nowadays. I think it just benefits everybody. And I'm really happy with him. And I don't see him losing that spot. I mean, not unless that Gabriel guy comes, but honestly, I don't even want him. We had a big need at the number 8 spot. We all said that. Everybody said that. Portistas, Benfiquistas, Sportingistas. But with Jetson being called up, I think we've been really good.
Yeah, and it's not only that. You got Jetson, and then you've also got the likes that impressed last year, like Krovinovic and Zivkovic, who I don't know what the future holds for Zivkovic in terms of position, whether he'll be back in the middle or out
played
on the flanks.
On the right wing mostly.
Yeah, which, to me, looking at Benfica's end to the season, I personally think Zivkovic to me is a winger, but or wide playmaker, shall I say? But there was something about those Grimaldo, Zivkovic, Servi triangles that I really liked, and I thought it was the best bit of football coming out of Benfica's lineup. So, if I was a Benfica fan, I'd be a bit disappointed not to carry on from that because I do think some of the best football was played down that left side. But those two are options in midfield as well alongside Jetson. I think what Gabriel would bring to the Benfica team, from what I hear, is someone who is essentially a number 10, so someone who can play a lot closer to the final third and make decisions, whether it's someone like Jetson would be
So play like
more of a
John.
ball. No, but not like Jonas, but behind Jonas. Perhaps feed off him because Jonas is good at holding the ball up and bringing others into play as well at the same time. So it's perhaps someone who can be more effective in that role. He's someone who actually would fit into something similar to what Bruno Fernandes does at Sporting, if you get what I mean, when he's closer to the striker. I think that's the idea behind Gabriel. And perhaps even further back when Benfica were looking at signing Lucas Evangelista, who's now gone to Nantes.
It would have been a really good pickup.
Yeah, and a fraction of the price as well. I think he went for €4 million or something. Gabriel was being quoted around 8 to 10, something like that. So I don't know what happened there. But yeah, Evangelista, obviously someone who's already played in the league as well. You could argue he's proven in the Portuguese league. But we'll see what Gabriel does if he does sign. He's done well over at Leganes, and it's La Liga as well. So
yeah,
if he comes out, a lot of money, but if he comes over here and impresses, then you won't be talking about that. 8 million could soon look like a bargain.
Yeah, true. All right. So there's only, obviously Eboué signed, as you mentioned that earlier, but he's hurt. So, and we also, did you? Oh yeah, you asked me about Ferreira on off, right? Okay, so I got to talk about Ferreira live, right? So real quick on Ferreira, he hasn't impressed me nor everyone else like we expected him to, but he has a pedigree on him, and I think that when he plays next to Jonas, is when he's been the best, and I think he just needs to keep playing. He's gonna be one of those players that might not play well the first 3-4 games, but when things start to gel, I think you're definitely going to see the quality because there were spurts where you could definitely see the wits about him, how he reads the game. Sometimes he's just not making the proper run or the proper pass, but I think that's all due to when you have Jonas next to Servi, he knows what Servi is going to do, and Servi knows what Jonas is going to do. When you bring Ferreira into that, he doesn't know what Servi is going to do, or Servi doesn't know what Ferreira is going to do. So I think once he really gets into it, you'll definitely see a very good striker. Not sure how many goals he'll score, but I think he'll contribute to this team as well, much like Castillo, in my opinion.
Yeah, I personally think, obviously, looking on from his record in Ukraine, he's obviously got goals in him, and he will have certainly been well referenced by the people at Shakhtar, who I believe Shakhtar's chief scout used to be Benfica's. There's obviously good information between the two clubs on the player. But to me, like looking at it, like in the most basic form, I think Ferreira and Jonas are two similar players who potentially could have a little bit of trouble like gelling together and building that understanding that we had. For example, what's a good Benfica partner? Jonas and Mitroglou. I think that worked. That was, yeah. It's finding that partnership. I'm not sure whether two similar. Sometimes it could work and they could feed off each other and have that synergy. But more often than not, I think when you got two kinds of players that are sort of similar, they tend to take up the same spaces and cancel each other out.
That's that's when you were talking to me. That's what I was afraid of the Gabriel thing, because when I asked you, like you said, he's a number 10. Jonas isn't in fact a number 10. He's a striker, but he feels that those positions a lot. So that's what I was when you were talking about him.
Yeah, I mean, for Gabriel, it could be a little bit more different because obviously he's a midfielder. There might be instances where he perhaps comes from a lot deeper, so you can build, the passing lanes might be more logical than as opposed to two centre forwards standing side by side or whatever and trying to work from there. But beyond that, you've signed Nicolas Castillo, who's someone who's a lot more robust, for quite a bit of money. I'm not sure. Even then, like as a player, I'm not sure if Castillo is as good as Jonas or Ferreira. And then
No, but he definitely brings something. The transfer fee might scare us all,
yeah,
but from what he's produced in these preseason games, he scored, I think, 3 goals, if I'm not mistaken. And he's just been really solid, and he's doing what Raul wouldn't do, which was stay in his actual position. Which, if
yeah,
you're my friend, I came here almost every single week saying Raul keeps going on the wings. Raul never stays in the middle of the field, like that. So he's at least he's doing that. The transfer fee might scare us a little. It is a lot of money, but we might get the payoff. Maybe not financially, but football wise, we might get a good return.
But see, to me, I think Raul makes more sense in this equation than Castillo, for example, because they're two players. Like, for example, Castillo and Jonas and Ferreira. If we're to envision them as creative strikers that will bring other people into play from the edge of the box and perhaps pop a shot off themselves and whatnot, that's a sort of a semi-stationary role. And Castillo being a big striker, you know, that's a stationary role in itself. So, in my most basic methodology of linking strikers together, which I think Benfica might do, you could go 4-3-3 as well. But I think it's more logical to obviously have a stationary or semi-stationary role with someone who is a lot more mobile and willing to run the channels. And I think that guy was Jimenez. But, he's gone now. The most logical thing would have been for Benfica to find someone who can do that. I don't know if Ferreira can come out of his shell and begin to reproduce stuff like that himself. But it's just I'm just trying to imagine these strikers working together, and I'm not sure if they can.
I feel a lot more comfortable. Even if we sell Seferovic, I feel a lot more comfortable with Jonas, Ferreira, and Castillo than I did last year with Jonas, Seferovic, and Raul. So if that tells you anything,
Yeah, I know how much you like Seferovic as well. So
No, yeah, but I'm just saying,
yeah. Like this, I think the best way for Benfica to attack the season is definitely in a 4-3-3. And in the Portuguese league, I think that's enough. I think Jonas will get goals, and there's plenty of creativity elsewhere to unlock teams. But in bigger games, I don't know. I think that you might need another sort of solution, another sort of player up front that can convey a different kind of threat. Perhaps, and this is why I liked Jimenez, because I think Jimenez is a very modern day striker in the sense that he can do a bit of everything. He's strong, he's good in the air, he's got decent technical ability, above decent, even. It's just a matter of consistency with him. But certainly for European games and Champions League games against quicker and faster opposition, I think Jimenez is a kind of striker that would be useful. And if we could find someone in a similar sort of mould who can perhaps be a bit more consistent and stick to instructions a little bit more, then that would be great for them. But yeah, it's just a matter of seeing how it plays out. I just have doubts whether, Jonas and Ferreira, which I think are the two outstanding strikers of the lot, whether those two will work. So to me, it smells like 4-3-3 or something like that.
Yeah, I just think we just gotta wait and see. To be honest, this one's where we gotta wait and see.
Another thing is the goalies as well. What do you think of Vlachodimos?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna get to. That was the final thing before we moved on. So honestly, I think we still need to bring on another guy. I hope we sell Bruno Varela as fast as possible, and we bring someone else really established. Would be what I wanted. But in the game where we needed the most out of Vlachodimos, which was against Juventus, and if you haven't watched the highlights for that game, I recommend you to. He had to make some difficult saves, and he handled himself really well. But I mean, I don't know. He seems to be more of a stopgap goalkeeper. He seemed fine. He seemed to be good. There was a small sample size. Obviously, in these preseason games, you can't expect every team to attack you. And unfortunately, we didn't get to see him against against Dortmund, which I wanted to. But since Villar got hurt before the Sevilla game, he ended up playing against Sevilla. But Sevilla didn't trouble us. So the only game where you actually had to do work, he was really good. I think there's no way we can fault him for it. And I know this is trivial, but I enjoy the way that he went on the penalties. I thought that he, unlike what we saw in Sevilla in his penalties against the Dortmund, where he just kind of guessed where the guy was going to shoot, I felt like Vlachodimos was more focused and he actually tried to play the ball. So I think he's good, but I don't know. There's not enough sample size. I would rather have somebody really established. But if not, I mean, I'm definitely more confident with Vlachodimos, at least right now, than I was with Varela.
Yeah, I would take the same position. Obviously, I don't know enough of Vlachodimos and what he can do. And obviously, we've seen Bruno Varela. Perhaps he's had some good moments. He's had some bad moments as well. So, you know what you get with him. And with the numbers that are already there and concerns still surrounding the goalkeeper spot, it makes sense for you to cut Varela out and then possibly bring another goalie in. But the only thing I would say with that is if you bring another goalie in and you've got Vlachodimos, who perhaps is, without knowing too much about him, sounds like someone who could be suited as a number two, then you've also got to think about Žvila as well. And I think that the worry about Žvila is because he's had a few clangers behind him. And obviously there's a big effort for Benfica to protect him because they know the talent that he has. The problem with that is that how old is Villa? He's 18, 19 now, yeah?
18 turning 19 if he hasn't turned yet.
And so, it really is his time, I think, for breaking into the first team and starting impressing is coming very soon. So at some stage, perhaps even this season, ideally he should be thinking about making a breakthrough. I'm not sure if a loan move would be good for him.
I would prefer that, to be honest.
And I'm not sure whether being behind Vlachodimos and another goalkeeper is ideal for him either. So,
I think best case scenario, we would be able to loan him to play. Obviously, to start, would be loaning him to Braga or Guimarães or Chaves. Those would be, really ideal places for him to be because they would play, obviously not Benfica style football, but he would still be, aggressive. He wouldn't have to make a bunch of saves. He would be more of a sporadic goalkeeper, like he would be at Benfica. So I would prefer him to have a loan move for at least a year because the issue with Benfica is that us as fans, we see this. Varela, we've known his quality since he was in the B team. That was his ceiling. We all saw that he's not good enough for Benfica. Vlachodimos seems to be a question mark, but definitely seems to be more of a number two type of goalie. And then you have Sevilla, which we cannot discredit his ability. He's definitely got a very bright future ahead of him, but he's not ready yet. So we're kind of stuck on the fence here on what do we do. I would honestly try and loan out Sevilla to a Portuguese side that's key to a Portuguese side, and bring on one more established, which I think Benfica is really waiting on the end of the market, which might be dumb, but at the same time, we might get one of those deals where you weren't expecting. So I think Benfica are really waiting at the end of the market, see who they can bring in, or they just stick with Svilar and Vlaco Dimos and go with the quote unquote hot hand, as they like to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Obviously, there was a good opportunity for Villa to make the jump to Guimarães, but they've picked up Joel Pereira from Man United. So I think it'd be nice to see like Villa from a purely footballistic perspective. It'd be nice to see him operate a club that's at least Europa League level as well. But I don't necessarily think he has to be in the Portuguese league, in my opinion. As long as it's the right club and there's a decent amount of protection for him as well, because he is coming from a difficult season. And
it's just a scary prospect. I said Portugal, not to cut you off, but it's just a scary prospect. If we loan him out to someone that has money, it's just really easy to lose him like that.
Yeah, but you can turn a negative into a positive. So it would obviously be a shame not to see like Villa thrive at a club like Benfica because he's impressed at a loan move, and then he's got his head turned. He wants to move there, but realistically, you'll be loaning Villa out to a club that's inferior, and if another club in that league or whatever is impressive him, then you can. You'll get the rewards from it financially, but at the moment he'd be doing little more than gathering dust. And he's a player who I think really needs to play to get some of the moments he's had last season out of his system. It's just about finding the right move for him, because obviously I can't imagine emotionally he's like 100%, and he's a very young player who's probably gone through way more than what a young player should have to go through. So it's all about confidence, really, all about installing confidence back into him and moving forwards with that. So perhaps a low move would be best for him.
Mm-hmm. All right. But with that said, I think that would honestly be my only position. Obviously, we had the right back issue, so I think recalling someone or signing someone is definitely a must there. But besides that, honestly, I wouldn't really mess with the team. I wouldn't mind seeing Salvio go and possibly just keep what we have or bring another winger. But the biggest thing right now for Benfica, I think, is just waiting for the right time to attack that really good goalkeeper that just might come in for a very cheap price. I think that's what they're waiting on.
Yeah.
So with that said, let's just get to Porto real quick, and I'll go over the scores on the preseason games, and you'll just talk about we'll just talk about a couple of signings. So Porto played games that were televised. They played against the Portimonense, which they lost 2-1. They played Lille, which they lost 2-1. They played against Everton, which they won 1-0. And they played against Newcastle, which they tied 0-0. Now they have a game coming up this weekend, this Saturday, against the Desportivo das Aves to open up the season in the Supertaça. Patrick, looking over Mbemba, Militão, and João Pedro really are the biggest names that Porto signed. Your thoughts on these guys?
Well, obviously the biggest name there is Mbemba, who comes with for a Portuguese league quite an extraordinary fee. Whoever watches the Premier League knows that's the normal fee. It's something in the region of 8 million. I think that's a good addition to Porto's team. Is someone who, when fit, has a lot of potential to back up, which he hasn't been able to do at Newcastle. But in the Portuguese league, it's a different challenge. The football's played at a different pace, and and being someone who's quite quick on his feet and able to fill gaps at the back, as he showed early in his early days at Anderlecht. I think he could. I think he could definitely be a hit in this Porto team. But I think you will lose a bit of the composure that Marcano brought to that backline, because when you got someone like Felipe, he's someone who's very ball hungry, if you get what I mean. So it'll be interesting to see how he settles next to Felipe. He's obviously injured right now. I'm not sure to what extent, Bemba. But certainly, there's I like him as a player, and I think he can definitely do quite well. I'm not sure about the backup around him. Obviously, it would be an important season for guys like Chidozie, who've been waiting for a chance ever since he impressed against Benfica like two or three seasons ago. Perhaps this is his year with.
Uh, Not really sure what just happened there. That was really weird. Uh, I got to reinvite Patrick onto the call real quickly. So stay on air here with me. I just suddenly lost internet connection. That was one of the weirdest things that happened, but we'll get right back into it. Um, so honestly, Joe, what he was saying with Mbemba, we'll see how he's able to feed into this Porto side. Hey, Patrick, I'm not sure what happened. I just lost internet all of a sudden. So, but we're still on air. So,
Oh, okay. Yeah, we were talking about
what you were saying.
the options at the back, weren't we? So, yeah, with Marcano gone and Reyes gone, there's obviously space for the likes of Chidozie to step up, and they've obviously got two very, very interesting centre backs in Diogo Leite and Diogo Queiroz, which could two players that could make the step up. But we'll see. There's a lot of changes there, especially from a title-winning team. So that could be a potential weakness for Porto, but we'll see how they'll settle in. It's just that's just me speculating. But you've also got guys like Militao, who'll bring something, and João Pedro as well as another player who's been referenced as being quite interesting. So we'll see how they fit in. As I say, there's obviously been a lot of changes at the back. Ricardo Pereira is another that's gone. They've managed to hold on to Alex Telles for the time being, and perhaps Porto fans would be wishing that they didn't have to drag another season out of Maxi, but I think they will have to. So we'll see how he handles that. Generally, potentially a much weaker defence from Porto's perspective, but there's also the space, as you say, for new names to stake a claim. You good, Peter?
Hey guys, so I'm not sure if I'm still live on the same video. I hope I am. My internet keeps running in and out, so I won't be able to host the call. We were just about 1 hour and 20 minutes in. We're just going to quickly cover the Porto transfers. We'll talk about Porto next week. Just quickly predict that I think that they're going to win their game against Stars, but it might be a tough one given how they play this preseason. And just to give out a quick word to the Euro under 19, oh my God, the Portuguese under 19 national team that won the Euros. There we go. That was difficult to get out. To them and everybody that was involved in that. We'll definitely tackle that in the next episode too, with a little bit more time. Patrick isn't here, but I want to thank him, and I want to thank Zach, which was having internet issues, so that's why he couldn't stay in the call. But next week we'll talk about Porto's whole preseason and the first game, which they'll have against the Aves this Saturday, and we'll talk about the Benfica game again. Champions League, and I think the Cinco Violinos Trophy is being played too for Sporting. So we'll talk about those games and our Porto's squad a little bit more in depth in the next episode, because my internet just keeps lagging out and I don't want to run the risk of it dying again. So I'm your host Peter, or your co-host Peter. I was joined by my co-host Patrick and Zach as a guest. We'll be back next week. Probably on. Don't forget to check us out, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye bye.